Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I am back in action. It is the 12th of April. We are screaming through 2023. I got my main man, Jasper, over in the co-producer chair. And just below me, in the footlight section of today's studio broadcast, I have the one and only Miss Peachy Pitts. So we got cat power today on 412. So I hope everybody's having a vivifying morning, a vivifying and enervating morning. And if you're deeper into your day, then I certainly hope that you are meeting your challenges with grace and aplomb. About that, I was listening to Douglas Murray yesterday. It might have more rubbed off on me a little bit. All right, so we have some really good astral weather, and I got to tell you, my star of the day today, it's going to take you places. Literally take you places. And we're going to learn a lot about astrology through today's star of the day. I'm really looking forward to that. It's almost like the weather's a formality to get to the star of the day. But there is a connection with today's weather and the star of the day. And that, my dear friends, is the moon in Capricorn. Hint, hint. All right, I got to ditch my face here. I can't watch myself while I do this. It's a little distracting. Back in the old days when I would just live stream podcasts, it was so much easier. I didn't have to look at myself. It's a wee bit distracting. All right, here we go. Moon in Capricorn, 11 degrees. Hey, it's conjunct my Saturn. How about that? We do definitely have a Capricorn theme star of the day. So here we go. The moon is winding down. It is not quite balsamic yet. Let me bring this view. Let me see what we got here. Zoom in a little bit. Let's bring our discussion a little bit closer. Here we go. So right out of the gate, we've got Mercury in Taurus, which is, again, all about being grounded, making it real, keeping it real, speaking it real. And we have a nice trine straight out of the gate today. Or again, if you're in another part of the world, you're still tapping into the cosmic forces. With the moon in Capricorn and the trine to the station of Mercury in Taurus right over here. So what does that bring us? It brings us pragmatism. It brings us being grounded and being rational and using our instincts in a way that are aligned with our ability to communicate and have a more intellectual, to some degree, because I wouldn't call Mercury and Taurus intellectual. I would call Mercury in Taurus transactional. So this is a transactional day. And I think it's an important day to understand how much your time is worth. And really engage in those things that are going to bring you concrete results today. That's what you want to just focus in on. What's going to bring me concrete results? There's always an air, right? It's always in the air. We have Pluto and Aquarius now. So we're off into deep space, and we're speculating and looking into energies that are really out of this world and off this planet in a lot of ways. But today is a grounded exercise, or it's an exercise in grounding time and money. And don't spread it around, right? Don't spread it around. Get to business, get to work, and put your head down. You need, the thing with Taurus is Taurus needs momentum. Taurus is a little bit slow, but once the bull gets up and running, look out, it is a force to be reckoned with. So there's very little downtime between your instincts and your ability to cognate them and integrate them into what you say, and to even some degree, how you act. That's a different discussion because we do have a T-square today. It's a wide T-square with the moon squaring off against the sun. The sun in Aries wants it now. I want it all now. The moon in Capricorn is willing to defer a little bit. The moon in Capricorn is I'll wait for that second donut. The moon in Capricorn brings with it some degree of emotional intelligence. It's not a sexy moon, but in a time like ours, I think it's a really good time to, again, gather your forces and gather your values, and then be able to speak to them directly. Time is money, money is time, and don't waste it today. But that's part of the issue. That's part of the problem. We have somebody yesterday said, what about Kazemi? What about Kazemi and the sun and Jupiter being Kazemi? Kazemi is a really tight conjunction, and we still have it. And I will say this, I was a little bit amiss yesterday when I kind of, I wouldn't say glossed over it, but maybe I should have spent more time on that Sun Jupiter conjunction. And it's still there. The sun has moved ahead of Jupiter, right? So now it's more engaged in actualization versus opportunity and then actualization. But the idea of the individual is very important today. Oh my God. The self with a capital S tries to reign supreme. And there is a lot of invective in the air. There's certainly a high degree of aggression and tension, which we've been witnessing pretty much throughout Aries season and even leading up to Aries season. And it's a precursor to when the true node moves into Aries. And you know, the motto of the true node in Aries is, this town ain't big enough for the both of us, right? So this idea of people wanting to break out and break free and break through, and spring is here, and it's like, come on already. You know, we've been in 3 years of dystopian winter. Really, we have been. And ironically, Mr. Biden, I'm not even going to call him president, Mr. Biden, even Mr. I think is too respectful. Let's just say Joe. Joe rolled back the COVID restrictions. They are no more, boys and girls. They are no more. So that energy, that pent up energy, theoretically has been released. The Kraken has been released. And I think there's a sense here of people wanting to make up for lost time. And with the square, this is a wide square. As we go through the day, and by the time we get into the show tomorrow, that moon is going to move into even more of a square with Sun and Jupiter. So the insistence that we can't hold off any longer, like enough is enough, well, that's in the air, right? It's like enough with the Capricorn moon, enough with the strain, enough with the austerity. And when we get into later tonight, tomorrow, I think we're dealing with a high degree of what I would call irrationality. Now, it may not necessarily be a bad thing, right? Sometimes squares have some intense friction, and friction is energy. And maybe you need to move off of something. Maybe you need to have that kind of intense emotional dynamic where you're throwing off the chains and you're saying enough is enough. But there's other energies that are available. Even are they mutually exclusive? That's the whole other thing. You know, maybe they're not. You know, maybe the ability to plan and direct your energy with Mercury, which again, it'll be in less of a tight trine tomorrow because the moon will separate out a little bit. But maybe this energy is all about planning your escape. Maybe that's what it's all about. Methodically, thoughtfully planning your escape. There's a lot of me energy floating around today. A lot of me energy with the Jupiter Sun conjunction. Cassini. let's check out Mars. Yeah, I got to throw Mars into the equation too. Mars moon opposition. It's like the moon in Capricorn. Well, I'm going to sit back a little bit. I'm waiting for more information to come in. I'm waiting for more of the receipts to come through, and I can restrain myself. I can delay my gratification. And with this T square, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Especially later today. Mars is like, again, even if it's in Cancer on the other side of this opposition with the moon, it's like, man, I want it now, want it yesterday, want it last week, want it last month. I wanted it 2 years ago. So there is a high degree of restlessness today. And, energy is energy. That's how you deal with it. It's how you work it off. The challenge with Mars and Cancer is that it is not direct. It is really indirect. It moves sideways, it moves backwards. It's very defensive in a lot of ways. If you want to defend your property, today's a good day to do that with Mars opposing the moon. So it's definitely a good day to defend your property. There's a lot of tension around values today as well. And this may not be directed at you, but in what we would call the quote unquote collective, we'll call it the astrosphere. There's a lot of tension in the air and a lot of defensiveness and people wanting to defend their position and defend their turf. And sometimes you got to do it, right? Sometimes you got to do it. And with Mercury sextiling Mars, again, there's some interesting components to the energy today. But again, I think it's, if you're going to try to break out of the cage, right? You're going to try to break out of the cage. It feels to me like it's a reactive trigger. Sometimes it's okay, right? Sometimes shit happens, and sometimes it forces us in a lot of ways to break out of our ruts and break out of our patterns and our doldrums. The challenge with Mars and Cancer is that there's always this kind of second guessing. It's like getting up to the thing. You get up to the thing, and it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Do I really want to do this? That's one side of Mars and Cancer. The other side with Mars and Cancer is like, you just do it. You don't care, especially with this T square. And then there's the moment of regret that can set in. Mars and Cancer at its very best is circumspect when it comes to reviewing one's actions and how they went down. But if you can put it all together, right? If you can use that motivational energy, you got to use the motivational energy. When I used to play basketball, I used to play a lot of pickup basketball. And I would, Scorpio rising, I'd get on the court and my motivational energy was whoever I played against was going to have kind of a visit to hell, because I was very intense when I didn't play dirty, but I played within the rules, but I played intense. And if you were in a game and I was guarding you, you knew you were in a game, right? So there's a certain level, and I use that energy. It was an edge, and it was actually a very good edge. I wouldn't say I played angry, because you can't play angry, but I definitely played with at times a sense of immediacy and determination. That if it was me or you, it was going to be you and not me. So there's some of that in the air today. And again, I use that as motivational energy. In the NFL draft, when some guy gets drafted at the end of the first round and he thought he should have been a top 5 pick, they'll always say, yeah, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use it as motivation. I'm going to prove it to these people. I'm going to prove to these people they should have drafted me. That kind of energy is in the air today. And it's not always bad, right? The whole challenge here is how you channel it, right? How do you channel the restlessness? How do you channel the angst? How do you channel that Sun Jupiter conjunction, which says now, right? Now it's all about now, capital NOW. Then you have Mercury over here. It says, okay, let's put it into gear. So it's a really interesting day, just in terms of the overall energy. And again, we have the ongoing Mars Saturn trine. Mars is starting to separate a little bit. So let's add another layer on top of this. It should be also about mid to long term planning as well. We have all this now energy. And if you have been working on something and really kind of laying the tracks dutifully, patiently, there is a temptation, I think, to blow things up today. Maybe there's just a few things that you want to blow up about it, but not necessarily the whole thing. You know, even with the Mercury sextile to Mars, right? We're still working on building this bridge, right? You don't want to blow the bridge up entirely. Look, there's also some financial energy in the air. It's big. The financial energy is big because they're beating the shit out of the dollar, and we all know that they want to go Fed now. So again, with the moon in Capricorn, and I just keep looking at that moon. And one of the things that I made a decision on a long time ago was to keep my life simple. And I've said this before in other shows. Like I don't use credit cards. I don't buy things on credit. Right. I only buy things that I can afford. I've always kind of lived within my means and circumstances so I could do the things that I want to do, not the things that I have to do. And I learned that a long time ago. So some of that is in the air today, right? You want to be able to, have that moon in Capricorn kind of guiding you along that path. What do you need? What do you don't need? What don't you need? That's terrible English. What don't you need? And start pruning the things that you don't need. I would say if you can, I would try to pay off as many bills as possible because the money supply is starting to dry up. I can tell you that right now. It is starting to dry up. So if you can pay stuff off, I don't, there's this whole idea, well, when we go into the reset, everybody's debt will be zeroed, but there is a price to pay for that. That doesn't come without a price. So if you can trim the fat, this is one of those days where you can come up with a budget, come up with a plan, and try to stick to it. And, also think about what other assets are available. I was at the grocery store last night and I was looking for food for my crew. And I got to say, there wasn't a lot of cat food. And I usually gauge where things are going by what's on the shelves at grocery stores. And when there's not a lot of cat food, it's usually a sign to me that something is in the air. So make sure that you're prepped up, your preps are topped. It's that day. It's one of those days. Venus square Saturn. Don't be afraid of the Venus Saturn square. If you have to trim the fat on relationships, it's not a bad day to do it. Certain relationships that arise during these early degrees of Gemini could be very interesting and they could have long-term ramifications. And don't be afraid to invest in relationships that aren't always easy. There's a value, I think, here. And we also have a nice Venus sextile to Neptune. So, and it's great with Venus and Gemini because you go both ways. Venus, Neptune sextile, and you love everybody. You just love everybody. Oh yeah, you're just so unconditional. And the Venus Saturn square is, yeah, I love everybody. And I want to make sure that there's a little in there for me too, right? So it's one of those days where you can have some very interesting experiences and energies around relating with other people, right? There's rules, right? There's rules of engagement, decorum, respect, And I think that's how this is operating here, right? The people that show you some respect in your life, you can open up to them. You can open up to them with that Venus Neptune sextile. You like that? Well, there's more of me here, and I'm willing to share that with you. It's a really interesting day, very interesting day. And look at that. We've even got a moon Uranus trine. Innovation. This is such a powerful day because this T square is just so intense and edgy. It just wants to blow the roof off of everything, especially later today. But there's also some energy here that can be, I think, I don't know, destructively creative, right? And I'm not going to say, watch your tongue or review your actions before you make it happen. It's just a way to channel this cardinal T square and move the energy. Normally I recommend exercise to move energy. Mars in Cancer is kind of tricky with exercise. I think you can exercise in spurts, but it's not something that you really want to overwork yourself with. All right. That was a long one, 26 minutes. Let's get into the star of the day. I'm really excited about today's star of the day. And it's the astrological ramifications. Now, I got to keep it real. I could have gone down the David Hogg route. Today is David Hogg's birthday. And there's plenty of meat on those astrological bones with David Hogg. However, I'm not going to do that. Today's star of the day is John Krakauer. I'm getting a little obscure on you, aren't I? Yesterday was Russell Targ. I hope you enjoyed Russell Targ yesterday. I thought that was an amazing chart. For the guy that was one of the godfathers of remote viewing and working with the military. John Krakauer is a journalist. He's written some New York Times best-selling books. One of his books was turned into a movie, and it's about the movie was the guy that goes to Alaska and just kind of lives his life and disappears and goes off the grid. And another one of his books, which was also turned into a movie, was about his journey to Mount Everest. And it's called Into Thin Air. And we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to get into that whole episode with Krakauer and what happened. So one of the things that's really interesting is that here's his quote: "The very basic core of a man's living spirit is his passion for adventure." That's an Aries. That is an Aries axiom, and he's got a grand trine. He's got a grand trine coming in here. Mars and Sagittarius, final degree, anaretic. He wants to really go into the expansive and adrenaline chasing places, right? That's his Mars in Sagittarius, conquering those final frontiers at the 29th degree, like Mount Everest, right? And then over here we have Pluto in Leo, so Krakauer's boomer, and coming in right here we have the Sun in Aries. That is your grand trine. That is the nexus of this quote. The very basic core of man's living spirit is his passion for adventure. And Krakauer learned how to mountain climb as a young man. And who taught him? His father, Saturn. So keep an eye on Saturn here because it's close. It's conjunct his midheaven. It's the highest planet in his chart. It is the ruler of his chart because he happens to be a Capricorn rising. He's got his true node in Capricorn. So he's going to actualize himself in a very airy sort of way, right? That's the first house. And with Capricorn, what's he going to do? He's going to climb mountains. This is what John Krakauer did. I mean, he was more than a mountain climber. He was an adventurer. He was I think he still is, by the way. He wrote for Outdoor Magazine, and he was a published author in terms of like adventure travel, things like that. He also has his Chiron right there in Capricorn, and boy, does he meet his Chiron in 1996 on Mount Everest. And we're going to get into that in a second here. But you can see where Saturn is just demanding, right? And his Saturn isn't always in sync with other elements of his chart. It's just not in sync. He's got a Saturn Venus opposition, and Krakauer has alienated a few people along the way, especially after he wrote his book called Into Thin Air. There was a lot of controversy about that book. He's got Mercury Mars square, and he's got also Mercury Uranus square. And I think sometimes he probably, if you asked him, he probably put himself in dangerous positions and probably against his better judgment in a lot of ways. This is a very dynamic chart, a very complex personality. There's something about Neptune in the ninth house that has kind of a mystical, what's the word I'm looking for? Payoff, right? It's like the mystical payoff for getting to the top of the peak, which is really what Saturn up here. Saturn is the top of the peak. It's right at the top of the chart. Saturn here is the Everest of the chart in Scorpio. And the payoff is something transcendent with that Neptune Jupiter trine. Very interesting chart. Complex character, complex kind of execution of the chart itself. And Uranus in the seventh house over here, again, you're dealing with people from other countries, other cultures. And clearly, when you're climbing Mount Everest, you're going to run into people from all over the world, including the Sherpas. So this whole idea of relationships showing up in a different guise, unusual manifestations of relationships that end quickly, start quickly, but also can be not easy, right? There's a lot of disruption in this chart, but he's an Aries, so he's just going to move forward. That's the nature of Aries in general. And boy, is this really a very intense, complicated, and driven. That's one of the things I would say about this chart. He's driven. Okay, so let's do a little exercise here. I know we're going a little bit long, but so what I did is I lined up the day. There was a 2-day period, and it was on May 11th and May 12th of 1996 when there was this disaster. They'd gotten to the top of Mount Everest, and then this brutal storm came in, and not everybody in his group made it off the mountain. 4 people inside of his group didn't make it off the mountain, and that's where the genesis of the book comes from. So what's going on with Krakauer? The South Node is on his sun. It's like, yeah, you're going to get tested. So out of his group, I think there were 6 people, 4 of them didn't make it out of his group, right? So the South Node is really contesting his ability to just be dauntless and fearless, right? Mars Venus conjunction, you're going to have to pull together here. It's very intense, right? And dealing with Mars and Taurus, what are you dealing with? You're dealing with the Earth. Now, there's going to be some conflict and tension on the other side of this whole thing. Now we have the Mars Saturn opposition as well. He was in a fight for his life. Jupiter, right? Jupiter's on his true node. Might have been more mountain than John Krakauer had intended to experience. He'd never climbed anything over 8,000 feet before. So this was a completely new level for Krakauer. And boy, is he getting Capricorn? Is he getting the mountain here? Neptune conjunct Chiron. He's got that Chiron in Capricorn, and there's Neptune in Capricorn. And I'll bet there were times that this dude felt incredibly helpless. And what kept him moving, besides being an Aries, I don't know, is test of faith. This is a huge, huge time for him. May 10th, May 11th, right up there on, I think 11th and 12th, by the way. I used the first day. And you can see the struggles in the chart. That Mars-Saturn opposition. Really powerful. Chiron's up here, transiting through Libra. And what do we have here? We got an inconjunct with Mars. And what's going to happen is he's going to write into thin air. And as a book, it's going to spur other people to write their accounts of what happened. Now, there were a number of other teams, not just his team. There were a number of other teams that were trying to scale Everest. And it was probably one of the roughest times in that spring and summer in terms of climbing Everest. There were a lot of catastrophes that happened that year. And one of the guys that was part of another team was a Russian, and he took I guess Krakauer took some shots at him into thin air, and the Russian guy, we're going to explore him in a minute, didn't like it. He came out and he wrote his own book. And what's interesting is that the Russian mountaineer, his son is right here on Krakauer's true note. So this is a really, again, he's got a fascinating chart. This guy is really edgy, and he wants to experience the intensity of life with that grand fire trine. And he met his match that day. He more than met his match that day. So I want to show you something which is really interesting, because I was diving into this story last night. Yeah, I knew a little bit about it, but when I really dove into it, some things really popped for me astrologically that I just have to share with you. So this is about the 96 Mount Everest disaster. I guess I have it on May 11th. That's the day I had it on. So there are a number of people here. You can see the climbers. So the adventure consultants, that's Krakauer's group. Like, he's a part of it. You know, you had the guides, Rob Hall, Mike Groom, Andy Harris, and all these people were the clients. You had the Sherpas. You had this other group called Mountain Madness. There's another group that was on the mountain. These are the people that were part of that as well, right? So really, really interesting. Now, check this out. I was looking at these guides, and I'm going to show you how much they all have in common. It's really fascinating. Really, really fast. I'll show you the Russian guy too, whose name I forget. Check this out. All right. So adventure consultants, we're going to look at one of the guides, Rob Hall. What is Rob? He's a Capricorn. Just file that away. What about Mike Groom? Oh, we didn't get Mike Groom's birth date. That's right. I remember that. Andy Harris. Andy's a Libra. Let's see. Krakauer. Beck Weathers. Now, Beck Weathers is alive. He's a Sagittarius. And you're going to find that the majority of the people that I'm going to be bringing into discussion are either Sagittarians or they're Capricorns. So Beck Weathers is a Sagittarius. And you have the Mountain Madness crew, Scott Fisher, Capricorn. So we have Scott Fisher, Capricorn. He's a guide. We have Rob Hall, Capricorn. He's a guide. You got John Krakauer, Saturn on the midheaven, true Capricorn rising, true note in Capricorn, right? Here's this guy, Anatoly Bukreev, the Russian guy. What is he? Capricorn. Are you noticing the theme here? Can you see the theme? I think this Lene, I think she's a Sagittarius, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, December 18th. So is there a type here? Are we looking at a type for being extreme mountain climbers? Well, Capricorn clearly plays a role. Clearly plays a role. Capricorn is scaling the mountain, and Sagittarius is all about expansion and not being tethered by restrictions or restraint, right? So those two signs. And I bet you if I went into The Sagittarian charts, I'd find aspects in Capricorn. I have no doubt about that. No doubt whatsoever, especially the one born on December 18th. So there's your star of the day, John Krakauer. And we have a bit of an exposition with Capricorn, mountains, mountaineering, mountain goats, and getting to the top of the summit. All right. I hope you get to the top of your summit today and you reach your own personal peak performance and peak experience. I'll be over on 15 Minutes of Flame in about half an hour. Let me give you the visual for that. That's right there. You got 15 Minutes of Flame. And we're going to get into the subjects and topics of the day, which we normally do. We'll finish up yesterday with the How Did We Get There or Here series, which I started yesterday about what's going on in the world as we transition into Pluto and Aquarius. And by the way, if you want to get some of the best CBD products on the internet, truehempscience.com, order $100 or more and type in 15 MINS, that's 15 mins. You'll get free product with your CBD. And CBD is an everyday experience in my life. And it is absolutely 100% out of the quality of my everyday experience. So also, if you are looking to do a session with me, you can go to robertphoenix.com /services, and you can book something with yours truly. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real in your heart. Two-step what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and have yourself a fantastic day. We'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow.